All right, all right. Have fun, honey. More time for me to get these boxes sorted.
She said she's staying away another week, and I could feel the tension rising. But what I did next, nobody saw it coming. One message, one move, everything changed. I was sitting in the living room, scrolling through my phone when her message came. I'm extending my trip by a week. My heart skipped. I stared at the words, unable to move. Something about them felt different this time. Heavier, almost like a warning. I tried to stay calm, but my mind raced. Why the sudden extension? Was everything okay? The house felt too quiet, the clock ticking too loud. I could feel a chill creeping through me. Something was about to happen. I just did not know what. I could not stop thinking. My stomach twisted, my hands shook. Memories of small fights and quiet arguments flashed through my mind. Was this just a trip or something more? Every possibility felt worse than the last. I wanted to call her, to demand answers, but something inside held me back. Fear and doubt clawed at me. What if I had ignored signs? What if I had been blind all this time? The silence of the house pressed down like a weight. My thoughts raced faster than I could follow, each one darker than the last. I remembered a conversation with my lawyer a few weeks ago, something about preparing for unexpected problems. Suddenly, an idea struck me. What if I used that knowledge now? My fingers hovered over phone. Could a single message change everything? The thought made my heart pound. Part of me felt guilty, part of me curious. I imagined her reading it, not knowing what I had planned. The house felt colder, shadows longer. I realized that sometimes the right move is not the obvious one. One careful word could turn fear into control. I took a deep breath and typed a short message. I did not accuse. I did not beg. I just hinted that I was aware, that I had taken steps, and that someone was watching over the situation. My thumb hovered before sending, every second stretching into an eternity. Then I pressed send. Immediately, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Minutes passed. My phone stayed quiet, then a single appeared as she started typing. I could almost hear her heartbeat through the tiny dots on the screen. What was she thinking? Did she know I had noticed more than she realized? I paced the living room, staring at the clock, listening to the quiet hum of the house. Every sound felt amplified. An accidental creak, the soft whistle of wind through the window, the distant bark of a dog. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath. Then a reply came, short, trembling, uncertain. I smiled though my chest ached. The next moments would change everything, and I was ready. The phone buzzed again, but this time it was my sister. Her voice was sharp, full of worry. "Is everything okay?" she asked. I could hear the questions behind her words, the fear she could not hide. Friends called too, each one guessing, each one anxious. Rumors began to swirl, questions whispered in passing, eyes watching me in cafes and hallways. I stayed calm, answering carefully, saying just enough to keep them guessing. Inside, my heart raced. They did not know the whole story, and I was determined it would stay that way at least for now. Hours later, the truth began to unfold. I had followed subtle clues, tiny changes in her tone, the way she avoided certain questions, the small details in her messages. Piece by piece, it all made sense. She was hiding something, but it was not what I had feared. It was bigger, more complicated, and far more human than betrayal or lies. I sent one final message, carefully worded, revealing that I knew more than she imagined. Her reply came almost immediately, trembling words, half apologies, half confessions. I could feel her fear, her relief, her shock all at once. She realized I had seen the hidden corners of her life, the choices she thought no one noticed. When she arrived home a few days later, the air between us was charged. She looked at me, eyes wide, unsure, vulnerable. I met her gaze calmly, letting silence do part of the work. The revelation had changed everything. Not just her, not just me, but the invisible balance between us. For the first time, the tension broke, leaving space for understanding, and the unexpected shock of how clever restraint can turn fear into clarity. When she finally walked through the door, the tension hit me like a wave. Her eyes searched mine, looking for anger, betrayal, something to blame. I stayed silent at first, letting the weight of the moment settle. "Why?" she whispered, voice breaking. "Why did you—" I shook my head slowly. "Not why," I said, "but how you let things go this far without telling me." Her hands trembled, and she looked away. I could see the regret, the fear, the relief all tangled together. "I didn't want to hurt you," she admitted. The room felt smaller, every word heavier than the last. I felt my pulse racing, heart hammering against my chest, but I kept my voice calm. "Secrets always find a way to surface," I said. "But knowing doesn't mean losing control. It means choosing what comes next." She looked at me, unsure, fragile. For a long moment, silence stretched between us, thick and full of emotion. Then, slowly, she nodded. Something had shifted. The confrontation was over, yet the lessons of trust, caution, and understanding lingered, leaving both of us forever changed. The days after our confrontation felt strange, quiet, almost fragile. We were both careful with our words, careful with our actions. Every glance, every small gesture seemed to carry meaning we had ignored for too long. I watched her from across the room as she moved about, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something shift, something soft, something like hope. I decided to act, not with anger or suspicion, but with clarity. I organized everything that had been troubling me. The unanswered messages, the odd changes in her routine, the small hints that something was off. But instead of confronting her again, I chose a different path. I used a lawyer's advice not to punish or threaten, but to protect, to prepare, and to create a situation where the truth could surface naturally. Then I waited, and in that waiting, I discovered more than I ever imagined. She wasn't hiding deceit or betrayal. She was planning a surprise, a secret trip she thought would bring joy to both of us. The clues I had interpreted as signs of trouble were actually pieces of a puzzle she had been building in silence. When she finally told me everything, the shock was mutual. She stared at me, realizing I had known all along, but had chosen patience over panic. I smiled, not with triumph, but with relief and understanding. We laughed, nervously at first, then with the kind of ease that comes after fear is replaced by clarity. It was in that moment I understood something profound. Sometimes the greatest surprises are hidden behind a mask of suspicion, and sometimes the best way to navigate fear is with patience, calm, and a touch of clever foresight. What could have ended in distrust instead became a moment of connection, a revelation that changed everything between us. By the time the week ended, we had stories to tell, lessons learned, and a bond stronger than before. What shocked everyone wasn't anger, punishment, or betrayal. It was a quiet wisdom of choosing restraint, understanding, and a careful heart over panic. And in that calm, the unexpected joy of truth shone brighter than anyone could have guessed. As I sit here, thinking back on everything, I realize how fragile trust can feel and how easily fear can cloud our judgment. Just a simple message, "I'm extending my trip by a week," was enough to send my mind spinning, to make me imagine the worst, to feel as if the ground had shifted beneath me. Yet, in that moment of panic, I discovered something essential about patience, awareness, and restraint. Sometimes, it is not our reactions that define us, but the quiet decisions we make in the spaces between action and impulse. I could have called, confronted, or demanded answers immediately. I could have let suspicion take control and allowed fear to shape our future. But I chose not to. Instead, I paused. I observed. I prepared. And in that pause, I discovered more than I expected. I discovered her truth, hidden not in lies, but in careful planning and secret hope. I realized that what I thought was deceit was, in fact, love expressed in a way I had not yet understood. The week she was away became a mirror for me. It reflected my fears, my assumptions, and my strengths. I learned to trust my instincts while tempering them with patience. I learned that understanding often comes when we step back, when we let the story unfold rather than try and control every detail. Most importantly, I learned that surprises, true surprises, are often hidden behind the shadows of suspicion, waiting for a calm heart to see them clearly. By the time she returned, everything had changed, not just our understanding of each other, but my understanding of myself. I understood the power of careful observation, the value of restraint, and the unexpected ways love expresses itself. The shock that could have destroyed us instead became the catalyst that strengthened us. Looking back, I realize that life's most intense moments are not always about the drama or the confrontation. Sometimes they are about the quiet strength we discover within ourselves, the patience we show in the face of uncertainty, and the deep connection that comes from choosing understanding over anger. In the end, what shocked everyone was not anger or revenge, but the calm, measured way a heart can navigate fear and turn into clarity, trust, and lasting love.